Is your state on the verge of collapse? Across America, millions of people are feeling the weight of rising costs, shrinking job opportunities, and failing infrastructure, but some states are far more vulnerable than others, and if the United States economy crashes, these places could be pushed to the breaking point first. From massive debt crises to population loss, and from crumbling industries to widespread poverty, the warning signs are already here. In today's video, we're counting down the top 10 US states that could collapse first as the economy crashes. If you want to stay informed about which states are struggling the most and how it could affect your future, you'll want to watch this list all the way to the end. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to discover top 10 places, and tap the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the most important stories shaping America. Now let's get started. Number 10, Illinois. It has become one of the most financially troubled states in the United States, largely due to decades of poor fiscal management and a massive pension crisis. The state currently carries one of the largest unfunded pension liabilities in the nation, totaling well over $100 billion. This enormous burden has caused repeated budget crises, credit downgrades, and limited flexibility in state spending. Instead of investing in infrastructure, education, and economic growth, a significant portion of Illinois' budget is consumed by pension obligations and debt service. To make matters worse, property taxes in Illinois are among the highest in the country, driving families and businesses to seek relief in neighboring states such as Indiana, Wisconsin, and Missouri. Chicago, the state's economic engine, is also weighed down by its own financial issues, ballooning public debt, rising crime rates, and declining corporate investment, all of which amplify the state's vulnerability during times of economic instability. Beyond its fiscal woes, Illinois faces a persistent and troubling demographic decline. Year after year, the state records one of the highest rates of outmigration in the U.S., with tens of thousands of residents relocating to states with lower costs of living, better job prospects, and friendlier tax climates. This exodus erodes the tax base, making it even harder for the state to generate revenue to cover its ballooning obligations. Smaller cities and rural communities across Illinois are particularly hard hit, suffering from factory closures, job losses, and infrastructure decay. Young professionals often leave after college, while older residents feel the burden of rising property taxes and stagnant local economies. The result is a vicious cycle. As the population shrinks, services decline, which pushes even more residents to leave. In the event of a national economic collapse, Illinois' already fragile financial foundation, combined with its shrinking population and high debt load, would likely make it one of the first states to spiral into deeper crisis. Number 9, New Jersey. It may be home to wealthy suburbs, proximity to New York City, and one of the highest median household incomes in the country, but beneath that surface lies a fragile economic foundation. The state carries one of the heaviest tax burdens in America, with extremely high property taxes, income taxes, and business taxes that weigh on residents and discourage investment. This has created a steady outflow of both people and companies to lower-cost states such as Pennsylvania, Florida, and Texas. Adding to the problem, New Jersey is one of the most densely populated states in the nation, which drives up housing and living costs while straining infrastructure and public services. Like Illinois, New Jersey also suffers from a massive pension liability crisis, tens of billions of dollars in unfunded obligations that eat into the state's budget and limit its ability to invest in growth. The demographic and economic trends in New Jersey paint a concerning picture. While some areas close to New York City thrive thanks to commuters and financial sector jobs, many inland towns and older industrial cities are facing stagnation, declining populations, and weakened local economy. Families and retirees often cite affordability as the primary reason for leaving, noting that high property taxes make it difficult to build long-term wealth. Younger residents, too, are choosing to relocate to states with more affordable housing markets and stronger job opportunities. With a shrinking middle class, high levels of state debt, and an over-reliance on wealthy commuters to keep tax revenues flowing, New Jersey is highly vulnerable to a major economic downturn. If the broader United States economy crashes, the state's high costs, outmigration, and debt burdens could cause it to collapse faster than many others. Number 8, New York. It has long been one of the most influential states in the United States, but beneath its global reputation lies a fragile and deeply divided economy. The state relies heavily on New York City's financial sector, tourism, and real estate to sustain its budget, yet this dependence makes it highly vulnerable to economic shocks. Wall Street generates a significant portion of the state's tax revenue, meaning downturns in global markets could quickly destabilize New York's finances. At the same time, the cost of living in New York City is among the highest in the world, with skyrocketing rents, property taxes, and daily expenses forcing many middle-class families to relocate. Meanwhile, upstate New York tells a very different story. Decades of industrial decline have left many communities struggling with job losses, aging infrastructure, and shrinking population. This contrast between a wealthy financial hub and declining small towns creates deep economic imbalances that weaken the state overall. The challenges don't end there. New York has been losing residents at one of the fastest rates in the nation, with tens of thousands moving each year to more affordable states like Florida, Texas, and North Carolina. The state's high tax burden, combined with rising crime in urban centers and limited job opportunities in rural areas, is driving both individuals and businesses to leave. As the population shrinks, the tax base erodes, making it harder to fund essential services and maintain already strained infrastructure. Additionally, New York carries one of the largest state budgets in the country, leaving little room to maneuver if revenues decline sharply. In the event of a nationwide economic crash, New York's dependence on financial markets, coupled with its outmigration crisis and high operating costs, could push it into rapid decline, making it one of the states most at risk of collapse. Number 7, California, the most populous state and the world's 5th largest economy if it stood alone, faces enormous vulnerabilities that could accelerate its decline in the face of an economic crash. While the state thrives on technology, entertainment, and agriculture, it also carries one of the highest costs of living in the nation. Housing prices are unaffordable for many middle and working class families, with homeownership rates at historic lows. The state's tax burden is among the heaviest in the United States, yet California also struggles with a structural budget imbalance and billions in unfunded pension liability. Homelessness has reached crisis levels in major cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego, straining social services and driving more residents to leave for affordable states like Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. Even its agricultural backbone is increasingly threatened by recurring droughts, water shortages, and wildfires, further destabilizing California's long-term economic outlook. Adding to its challenges, California is losing population at a pace that was once unthinkable for a state long associated with growth and opportunity. Over the last several years, hundreds of thousands of residents have fled due to unaffordable housing, high taxes, worsening crime in urban centers, and declining quality of life. The departure of major employers and corporate headquarters has compounded the problem, reducing job opportunities and weakening the tax base. Despite its wealth and innovation, California is deeply reliant on tech and entertainment revenues, sectors that are highly vulnerable to market downturn. If the United States economy were to collapse, California's fragile balance between immense wealth and systemic instability could crumble quickly. The combination of outmigration, budget pressures, and environmental crises makes it one of the states most at risk of spiraling into deeper decline during hard times. Number 6, Pennsylvania. It has long been seen as the industrial heartland of America, but much of that legacy has eroded, leaving behind deep structural challenges. The decline of the steel and coal industries devastated many communities, particularly in the western and central parts of the state, where once thriving towns now face abandoned factories, limited job opportunities, and shrinking population. While Philadelphia and Pittsburgh have attempted to reinvent themselves through healthcare, higher education, and technology, they cannot fully offset the decline of smaller manufacturing towns and rural economy. This imbalance has created a two Pennsylvanias, urban hubs with opportunity on one end and struggling regions on the other. On top of this, the state carries billions in unfunded pension liabilities and is consistently plagued by budget deficits, leaving lawmakers scrambling to patch holes instead of investing in long-term economic stability. The demographic challenges in Pennsylvania add another layer of vulnerability. The state has one of the oldest populations in the nation, with nearly 1 in 5 residents over the age of. This creates enormous pressure on healthcare systems, long-term care facilities, and pension programs, while simultaneously shrinking the working-age population that supports the tax base. Young people, especially college graduates, are leaving in large numbers for states with stronger job growth and lower living costs, draining Pennsylvania of innovation and entrepreneurial energy. Meanwhile, the state's infrastructure is in alarming disrepair, with thousands of structurally deficient bridges and aging water systems requiring billions in upgrades the state cannot easily afford. Rural hospitals and schools are closing, opioid addiction remains a persistent crisis, and small businesses continue to disappear. If the United States economy were to collapse, Pennsylvania's fragile mix of deindustrialization, aging demographics, fiscal mismanagement, and crumbling infrastructure could quickly push it towards systemic decline, making recovery far more difficult than in other states with healthier economies. Number 5. Ohio. Once a powerhouse of American manufacturing and industry, has struggled for decades with economic decline and population loss. Cities like Cleveland, Youngstown, and Akron were once synonymous with steel, rubber, and automotive production, but the collapse of these industries left entire regions hollowed out. Job losses have fueled long-term poverty, unemployment, and rising crime rates in many urban centers, while rural communities face shrinking populations and limited access to healthcare, education, and modern infrastructure. While Columbus has emerged as a growth hub thanks to its universities and expanding tech sector, much of the state still faces the effects of deindustrialization. This imbalance means that even as some regions grow, vast parts of Ohio remain economically stagnant, making the state particularly vulnerable to a nationwide downturn. Adding to its challenges, Ohio is dealing with a significant population decline that erodes its tax base and weakens its long-term economic stability. Many younger residents leave the state for opportunities in the South and West, while aging populations remain in areas with declining industries and few prospects for growth. The state also struggles with high poverty levels in certain regions, a persistent opioid crisis, and underfunded infrastructure in need of massive investment. With limited resources to rebuild its economy outside of a few metro hubs, Ohio risks being hit harder than most states in the event of an economic collapse. The combination of deindustrialization, outmigration, and public health crises could accelerate its decline, pushing already struggling cities and towns into deeper crisis. Number 4. Michigan. Its economic story is deeply tied to the rise and fall of the American auto industry, and while Detroit has long been the symbol of that boom and bust cycle, much of the state continues to feel the aftershock. The decline of automobile manufacturing devastated Detroit and many surrounding cities, leaving behind abandoned neighborhoods, crumbling infrastructure, and one of the most notorious municipal bankruptcies in United States history. While Detroit is experiencing some revitalization, progress has been uneven and slow, with poverty and unemployment rates remaining well above the national average. Outside of Detroit, smaller manufacturing towns across Michigan still struggle to replace lost jobs, and many rural areas face declining populations, underfunded schools, and limited access to healthcare. The state's dependence on cyclical industries, like automotive production, makes it especially vulnerable during national or global economic downturns, when consumer spending drops and factory layoffs rise. Beyond its industrial decline, Michigan faces additional challenges that could accelerate its collapse in a broader economic crash. Population growth has stagnated, with many young workers leaving for more dynamic states, offering better job opportunities and affordable housing. The state also has one of the most pressing infrastructure crises in the nation, exemplified by the Flint water disaster, which highlighted the dangers of underinvestment and mismanagement. Environmental issues, including water contamination and industrial pollution, continue to plague many communities, while poverty and crime remain persistent problems in certain urban areas. With a fragile economic base, aging infrastructure, and heavy reliance on a single dominant industry, Michigan risks deeper instability if the United States economy falters. A crash could trigger widespread layoffs in auto manufacturing, exacerbate existing inequalities, and push already struggling cities and towns closer to collapse. Number 3. Louisiana. Its economy is heavily dependent on energy production, particularly oil and gas, making it one of the most vulnerable states in the nation during times of economic instability. When global oil prices fall, Louisiana's budget takes a direct hit, leading to job losses, reduced state revenues, and deep cuts in public services. This dependence on a single volatile industry has created a cycle of boom and bust that leaves the state constantly struggling to maintain stability. In addition to its economic challenges, Louisiana is one of the poorest states in the country, with high poverty rates, weak healthcare systems, and underfunded education. These conditions leave large portions of the population especially exposed in the event of a broader United States economic collapse. Cities like New Orleans and Baton Rouge, while culturally vibrant, face significant infrastructure problems, high crime rates, and slow economic diversification, further adding to the risk. On top of these structural weaknesses, Louisiana faces ongoing environmental threats that magnify its economic fragility. The state's coastline is disappearing at one of the fastest rates in the world due to rising sea levels, hurricanes, and coastal erosion. This not only threatens homes and businesses, but also jeopardizes key industries such as shipping, fishing, and energy infrastructure located along the Gulf Coast. The state also carries high levels of debt and persistent budget deficits, leaving it little room to maneuver in the face of a national downturn. With its combination of extreme poverty, dependence on fossil fuels, environmental vulnerabilities, and systemic fiscal instability, Louisiana is at serious risk of collapsing quickly if the United States economy crashes. In many ways, the state's existing crises, both natural and economic, make it a warning sign for what could happen to other fragile states in the future. Number 2, West Virginia. It stands out as one of the most economically fragile states in America, and its vulnerabilities run deep. For generations, the state's economy revolved almost entirely around coal mining, but as the nation shifted toward natural gas and renewable energy, coal's collapse left West Virginia with few alternatives. Entire towns that once thrived on mining wages now face mass unemployment, poverty, and abandoned infrastructure. Despite efforts to diversify, job growth in industries such as healthcare and tourism has not been enough to replace what was lost, and the state continues to rank near the bottom in GDP growth and household income. Many of its rural communities struggle with underfunded schools, limited access to quality healthcare, and deteriorating infrastructure, while larger cities like Charleston and Huntington have been unable to attract the level of investment needed to spark significant revitalization. Even during times of national economic growth, West Virginia has lagged behind, making it especially vulnerable if the United States economy enters a severe crash. The state's demographic challenges only deepen this fragility. West Virginia has one of the oldest populations in the nation, with nearly a quarter of residents over the age of 65, and younger generations continue to leave in search of better opportunity. This exodus drains the state of its workforce, innovation, and tax revenue, while leaving behind communities heavily reliant on federal aid to survive. The opioid epidemic has further compounded these problems, devastating families, overwhelming social services, and giving West Virginia one of the highest overdose death rates in the country. Infrastructure needs are another major concern, as the state's mountainous terrain makes building and maintaining roads, bridges, and utilities extremely costly, yet the state lacks the resources to keep up. With high poverty, weak job prospects, a shrinking tax base, and entrenched public health crises, West Virginia sits on the edge of collapse. In the event of a nationwide economic downturn, these existing weaknesses could rapidly spiral into a full-blown crisis, leaving the state struggling more than almost any other in America. Number 1, Mississippi. It has long struggled with poverty, underdevelopment, and systemic economic challenges, making it one of the most vulnerable states in the nation. It consistently ranks at or near the bottom in household income, healthcare access, and education outcomes, leaving much of its population economically disadvantaged, even in times of national prosperity. The state's economy is heavily reliant on agriculture, low-wage manufacturing, and service industries, none of which provide the level of growth or stability needed for long-term resilience. This over-reliance on low-paying jobs leaves many families living paycheck to paycheck, unable to build savings or weather financial shocks. In addition, Mississippi receives more federal aid per capita than most states, highlighting its dependency on outside support to sustain public services. Without strong private sector growth, the state faces deep structural weaknesses that could quickly worsen in a national economic crash. The state's social and demographic challenges add further strain. Mississippi has some of the highest poverty and obesity rates in the country, along with one of the lowest life expectancies, reflecting its underfunded healthcare system and poor public health outcomes. Many rural areas lack sufficient infrastructure, broadband internet access, and job opportunities, which drives younger generations to leave the state in search of better futures elsewhere. This outmigration shrinks the tax base, leaving fewer resources to invest in schools, hospitals, and economic development. At the same time, crime rates in certain cities, such as Jackson, further discourage investment and population growth. If the United States economy were to collapse, Mississippi's fragile economic base, dependence on federal aid, and chronic poverty would make it one of the first states to face severe instability. The state's deep-rooted challenges mean recovery would be slow and difficult, leaving many communities in prolonged crisis. Conclusion: as we've seen, some U.S. states are already standing on shaky ground, struggling with high debt, population loss, poverty, and crumbling industries. While every state will feel the effects of a nationwide economic crash, these 10 are the most vulnerable to rapid decline. For the people living in these places, the warning signs are clear. Without real change, collapse could come sooner than many expect. But now we want to hear from you. Do you live in one of these struggling states? Have you noticed businesses closing, rising taxes, or people moving away? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We read everyone. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to discover top 10 places, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our future videos on the most important stories shaping America and the world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next countdown.